Here we go. Welcome ICF coaches from Orange County. Karen here with our host, Greg Faxon. Lovely to see you guys jumping on. Hi, Eric. Hi, Laura, Sherry, Vicky. Great to see you guys. It's about 12:58, 3:58 where Greg is. He's on the East Coast. So he doesn't get to have our wonderful California weather. All right. Victoria, great to see you guys. Lois, Greg, hi, nice to see you again. Giovanna, this is great. All right. We got another minute, everybody, until we dive in as we wait for people to hop on. How is the weather in West Virginia today, Greg?
It's good. The only thing we have to worry about is humidity.
Ew, yeah, I remember those days when I was on the East Coast.
That's the one thing.
Not fun. Hi, Carol. Glad to hear you're with Laura. That's awesome. We have Greg Faxon with us today, you guys. Thank you all for showing up at 1 o'clock today. I was really excited to have Greg join us, and he was able to. We worked out a different time than our normal time, but I'm so glad you guys could all make it. All right, we're going to wait one more second here. Actually, it's a little bit after 1. So we'll start and dive right in. Greg, I'm so happy to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for spending time with the Orange County coaches of ICF. We are thrilled to be learning about coaching archetypes today. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. And I'd even love to, as you're introducing, I'd love to have people type in the chat, if you will. Well, I was going to ask, usually I would do where are you from? But type into the chat for us how long you've been coaching, if you feel comfortable with it. Like, you know, how long it's been since you've gotten into it, just so I can have a sense of what we're working with.
Awesome. Yeah, the chances are most people are from Orange County. This is on our global site as well. So we may have a couple scattered throughout the country. Who knows?
Great.
Wow, Victoria, 2 decades she's been started coaching. My goodness gracious. Great. Let's see if you want to do a webinar there.
Yeah, Victoria, we'll just pop you on. I'll go something else. You can take over for a little while.
All right. Well, Carol Laura has been coaching for 3 years. Eric, 1 year. Hi, Vicky Rossetti. You've been coaching a long time. Big smiley face. Thank you guys for answering. Greg. Oh, Greg, you're in Phoenix today. Great to hear. I'm glad you could join us. 3 years. Marion, 10 years. My God. Congratulations. So a lot of a varied experience, Greg, but definitely a lot of hefty experience here we've got. So pretty impressive. Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. And Greg is with us from West Virginia. He is a special, special person in my heart because he's not only a fantastic coach, but he actually was my coach in all of 2018. So I am so happy to have him here. He has started his coaching business about 5 years ago when he was 22 years old. By 24, I don't know how he did it, but he managed to hit 6 figures in his business. So very impressive. He's also an author of Don't Let the Fear Win, which is a fantastic, easy read too. It's very deep, but it's also, it won't take you all somewhere to read it. And he has interviewed one of my favorites in marketing, and that gentleman was Seth Godin. So Greg's had a lot of milestones in his short career, and we're very happy to have him here teaching us about our coaching archetypes. So without further ado, Greg, I'm going to, in a short second here, turn off my video and let you have the stage.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Karen. So I do have slides today, everyone, so I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Before I get rolling, I just want to let you know that Karen and I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free to plug those in. I can't guarantee I'm going to get to them exactly when you ask them, but we'll do our best by the end of the training to have all of your questions answered. That way you get what you need out of it. So let's pop into the slides. And Karen, just let me know if you're able to see that.
We can. It's perfect.
All right. Sounds good. Let me pull up the chat so that I have it as well. All right. So coaching archetypes, we're going to talk a little bit about what these are, but if you get this right, if you're really able to figure out your archetype and apply it in your coaching business, you're able to fill your pipeline more easily, right? Attract potential clients. You're able to enroll those clients more easily, and you can start to develop your signature coaching style. So those are the three main areas we're going to talk about in your business as they apply to archetypes. And here's specifically what we're going to cover today. So the first thing is why playing to your strengths is so important to the success of your business. There's so many ways to build a coaching business, and you don't have to do it like anybody else. So especially in a world where everyone's trying to teach their signature system, it's important for you to find your own way of getting clients and delivering value to those clients. Second thing we're going to cover are the three marketing archetypes and exactly which tactics each type should focus on. So again, my goal in doing this training is to give you a compass so that you can filter through all of the other strategies you learn about marketing after this point. And then the third thing we're going to cover is how to create an actual weekly game plan for your marketing, and one that you can stick to, that you can be consistent with, because you can know lots about marketing, but if you're not actually implementing anything, obviously that knowledge isn't helpful for you. Okay. So why is it important to play to your strengths? I'd love to just hear in the chat. Obviously, as coaches, we have strong opinions about playing to your strengths. I just would love to hear in the chat some thoughts about why do you think when it comes to your coaching business, and especially getting clients, why would it be helpful to play to your strengths? Why would that be important? Go ahead and type into the chat for us. Okay, Victoria says authenticity. Right, so your potential clients are going to tell if the way that you're building your business seems like it's aligned with who you are. Okay, Karen says can be my true self, right? So it gives you permission to do things your way. Rita says it's more natural. Vicky says it's no fun to always be doing something that you're not good at. Clients pick up on it, plus you have no fun, right? So that's a great point, Vicky, and that's something I'm going to talk about in a moment. If it's not fun for you, if it's not enjoyable, it's going to be really hard to be consistent with that strategy. So that's one of the biggest reasons why it's important to play to your strengths. And Jean says, genuine, true to you. Okay. So all good points. So here's some reasons from my perspective why it's important to play to your strengths. Number one, the key to marketing is consistency. Okay. It's showing up in front of the same people again and again with a message that resonates with them. And you can't be consistent with things that you hate. So just like Vicky said, if you're able to have fun with the strategies you're using, not just to work with clients, because we all enjoy doing that if we're coaches, but building the business as well, it's going to help us be consistent with that process. All right, so number two is focusing on your strengths helps prevent overwhelm because it helps you eliminate options. Again, you're always going to be learning new strategies. You may have a fellow coach who you went to your training with who says, hey, I just tried this and it worked really well for me. And after a while, you're going to have so many options, you're going to start to get overwhelmed. So if you know what your strengths are when it comes to marketing and serving clients, you'll just be able to wade through those options more quickly. And number three is your strengths help set you apart from the competition, right? Whether it's other coaches or seminars or books that people could read, your potential clients, your strengths are going to help set you apart. Okay, so here's a positive feedback loop, and it goes to what we've been speaking about. If you start with your strengths, right, that's going to lead to, when you use those strengths, it's going to lead to enjoyment. You're going to enjoy doing the things that utilize your strengths, which leads to consistency because we just do things more often that we enjoy, which eventually leads to mastery. And then when we develop our strengths even more, right? So it's a positive feedback loop. So if you are choosing to do marketing strategies that you enjoy, you're going to just get really good at them. And I'd rather have you do one or two things really well from a getting clients perspective than try to do 100 things and never really develop proficiency in any of them. So what are marketing archetypes? Some of you may have taken the quiz that we linked to before the training. If you haven't done that, we're going to go through each archetype today, so you may start to get an initial sense. And Karen will also link you to the quiz at the end of the training so you can sort of get a sanity check on what your archetype is. But what are marketing archetypes in the first place? So this is a model I developed based on Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. He talks about 3 different personalities. Obviously, he wasn't talking about them in a marketing context or in a coaching context, but I've gone ahead and applied them to getting coaching clients. And each archetype speaks to a certain combination of strengths and proclivities. You can leverage your archetype in every area of your business. And we'll talk about this in a moment, but there's 3 different areas: captivate, convert, and coach. Those are the 3 phases of the client journey that I usually refer to when it comes to your business. So we'll apply your archetype to each of those 3 phases, and I'll explain a little bit more about what those 3 words actually mean in a moment. So the 3 C's of marketing. Captivate is the first step. Your first goal when you come across someone you might be able to serve as a coach is just to get awareness. And more than get awareness, the ideal is when it captivates you. So if you ever heard of a book, or maybe another coach that you've hired, or a movie that you want to see, or an online course you want to buy, and you've been reading the information about it, or you've been watching the trailer, and you're just totally captivated. You can't look away. It's like totally down your alley. It's totally for you. You were captivated, right? And that's what we want to do in the first step of our client journey. We want to take someone from never having heard about us to being intensely interested in what we have to offer. The second step of marketing is converting those clients, right? Taking it from just awareness. They like what you do. Maybe they've read some of your blog posts, or they've heard of you from a friend, to actually getting on the phone with you and enrolling into one of your coaching programs. Okay, so step 2 is convert. And step 3 is actually delivering your coaching to that client. And that's part of marketing too, right? Because if you do a great job, you're going to stay with that client for longer. It's going to lead to referrals. You'll get great case studies you can use on your website. If you do a crappy job, then it's going to hurt your marketing. You're always going to have to work harder and harder to get new clients because your reputation isn't going up. It's suffering. Okay, so feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions at this point. Let's talk about the 3 archetypes. What are the actual 3 archetypes that I've been teasing here? First is connectors. And the skill that connectors have is they make people feel comfortable. So when I surveyed my audience, okay, the people who follow me, about half of them are connectors. And I think a lot of coaches are connectors. And one of the reasons is because coaching is a lot about connection. You're spending time in deep conversation with clients. So it's not surprising that a lot of my audience is connectors. The second archetype is mavens, okay? And mavens are good at synthesizing and conveying information. So they're often the thought leaders. They may have published books. They may have very in-depth blog posts or videos or articles. They love ideas and breaking down ideas for people. And that's 36.6% of my audience. And the final archetype is salespeople. Okay, so salespeople are good at persuasion, motivating, and inspiring. You know, it's not the used car salesperson necessarily. When you think of sales, think about persuasion and motivation. So these are the people who, when they have an idea, people naturally want to jump on board because they're just naturally persuasive and good at selling ideas. And that's 18% of my audience. Okay, so any questions? What questions do you all have at this point? And if there are no questions, that's totally cool. We'll dive into each one of the archetypes and what strategies each of those archetypes can use in their marketing. Okay, all clear, awesome. So let's talk about the first archetype, connectors. Okay, thank you, Vicky, glad you're enjoying it. So connector characteristics, how do you know if you're a connector? So your superpowers, if you're a connector, are caring, curiosity, and the ability to bring people together. Okay, and as a result, connectors typically have strong networks. Okay, so if you're good at caring for people, being curious about them, you're going to develop a lot of friendships and a lot of connections. So that's an asset you have in your business. A challenge that connectors can sometimes have is developing and selling their ideas, right? If you're a connector, you like just making people feel comfortable. So sometimes offering your services can be a challenge and actually talking about them in a way that gets people excited. And some examples of connectors, and I just tried to choose, connectors that people may have heard of. Oprah, Lewis Howes, Lewis Howes has his own podcast. Oprah, obviously, you all know. And Oprah's probably a connector because what is her show based on? It's based on having guests onto her show, right? She has some thought leadership, but her main platform is based on recommending other people's books, having other experts on and interviewing them. So we'll talk about this in a moment, but that's a great tactic if you're a connector, is to create content based on interviewing others. So how do you captivate as a connector? Remember, there's 3 phases to your coaching business. Captivating, which is about getting awareness. Converting, which is about actually taking that awareness and making it a client. And then third is coaching, delivering your service. So this first part, how do you get awareness as a connector? So I want you to continue to cultivate a strong network. That's going to come naturally if you're a connector, and it really comes in handy when you're building a business, because the more people who know what you're up to, the more people who can refer clients to you, obviously. Focus on developing referral relationships with key influencers who serve your target market in a complementary way, okay? So what this means is that who else is serving your ideal client, but maybe in a way that's complementary to how you would coach that client, right? And an example is, so for example, I have a fitness business as well, in addition to helping coaches get clients. Example people who I could partner with, weight loss centers, doctors, personal trainers, health coaches, farmers markets, gyms, right? All of these people are helping solve the problem that I also help solve, but in a complementary way. And consider interviewing experts as a way to create content and gain credibility. If you're a connector, you won't enjoy creating content without connection. So if you're just alone writing blog posts and then you never get feedback on them when you put it out, that will very quickly become demoralizing to anyone, but especially to connectors, because you need that human connection. So even if you're still building your audience, you don't have a lot of followers yet, at least if you're interviewing other experts, you get the connection that comes from the creation of that content, okay? So here's how you convert as a connector. Here's how you convert potential clients into paying clients. Connectors are naturally going to be good at building trust with everyone they talk to. So don't worry so much about, having to build rapport and things like that. You're just going to be able to do that very naturally. What might be harder is staying in the tension long enough to close the sale. Right? It doesn't mean you need to be pushy or you need to be demanding, but you do need to confidently outline how you can help the client. Right? If you're just having consults with people and then you say, great, like, so glad this was helpful for you, let me know if you need anything else, and you hang up, that's not going to get you as many paid clients as if you give at least a clear invitation of, hey, would you like to hear what it would be like if I were to support you long term, and breaking it down for them, right? So they can make that decision for themselves. And remember, your goal is to serve, not to please, right? So for those of you who may have read the book, The Prosperous Coach, they talk about your goal is to serve, not to please when you're working with clients. You may say something that throws them off for a minute. You may have a truth to share with them that maybe even makes someone upset at the moment. The same is true with marketing and with sales, right? If your goal is just to please the client, you just give free sessions forever and you'd never offer your services. But if your goal is to build a business, and in order to sustain that business and keep helping people, you need to make money, you need to keep that in mind when you present your coaching and your services as well. All right, and finally, the third phase of marketing is the coaching itself, the delivery. So as a connector, you're probably going to be more of a pure coach. And what I mean by that is you're going to be more of a coach as the ICF would define a coach. You're not going to give your clients a lot of advice. You're going to be good at holding space. You're going to be good at asking powerful questions that bring insights out of your clients. And you all know this if you've been in the coaching industry for any amount of time. Not everyone coaches that exact way. For example, I like to give more mentorship in my business. I have courses that I sell, right? Because I'm a Maven, so we'll talk about in a moment. I like teaching, right? As a coach, and as a connector, you may just love being with clients and doing that pure coaching, and that's awesome. You don't feel like you have to create books or courses or mentorship programs or masterminds. You may just love that pure coaching, and you should do that. It's probably a strength of yours. you shouldn't force yourself to create a step-by-step system. You know, when you're selling your coaching, you can just give people a broad sense of what to expect. So for example, when we talk about Mavens, we're going to say, you know, it's probably helpful when you're a Maven, when you're selling your coaching, to give some details in terms of what your system is for helping someone achieve the breakthrough that they want to achieve. You don't have to worry about that so much as a connector. You're doing pure coaching. Just give them a sense of what they're going to get out of the coaching engagement and how it'll be structured logistically. And masterminds and group programs are a good option for you if you want to scale your business a bit, if you want to go beyond one-on-one. And the reason is because group programs and masterminds, they involve you being a connector, right? You being a leader of a group and keeping that group connected, so it will take advantage of your natural strengths. All right, what questions do you have for me on connectors? And I'd even love, please pop into the chat just so we have a sense. If you think you're a connector, just go ahead and pop into the chat. You know, I'm a connector, or I think I'm a connector, just so we can get a sense of numbers on the call. Sherry asked, do we move through the 3 progressively, or are we just one or another off the bat? So one of the biggest questions that I get around archetypes is people can see themselves in multiple archetypes, and that's totally natural, right? One of the things that I say is all this stuff is made up anyway, right? All the stuff you learn in coaching school, all the models that people present to you around your business, it's all made up. It's all helpful to the extent that it gives you clarity and direction. So of course, you're not going to fall perfectly into one category. Most people have a primary archetype and a secondary archetype. Okay, and so if you know your primary archetype, it really helps you focus on those things, and then obviously your secondary archetype can support that. But if you feel like you're all 3, you're probably not being disciplined enough with yourself in terms of really getting real about what you're best at. We can all be all 3, but we're not all wired to be all 3. Rita's a connector, Jean's a connector, Eric, probably primary connector, secondary Maven, Vicky's a connector. Awesome, guys. Thanks for your feedback. So let's talk about Mavens now. This is the second archetype. Some characteristics of Mavens. Number 1, your superpowers are expertise, step-by-step thinking, and a focus on tangible results. That really is what gets you excited often working with clients, is when something substantively changes in their life. The assets that you have as a connector. The main one is usually you have a deep expertise around a certain area. And not just coaching, right? We all need to be experts on the art of coaching. But if you're a Maven and you've been a Maven your whole life, you'll probably find that you have real expertise in an area that you can apply to coaching. That could be leadership, performance, career, health, dating and relationships, right? All of the main niches out there. And if you're a Maven, your business is really going to be well served by you combining that expertise that you have from your past life with the coaching skills that you've learned. And don't be afraid to bring that expertise in. There's value in that for clients, especially since you do have that step-by-step way of thinking. All right. Challenges, self-doubt, and overanalyzing. Okay. So sometimes when we know a lot and we have a high level expertise, the more we know, the more we realize we actually don't know. And we hold ourselves to a really high standard. So ironically, sometimes Mavens are the most to doubt themselves and analyze, am I really an expert at this when they're teaching it? And some examples of Mavens you may have heard of, especially I work in the online world a lot. So Tim Ferriss, Amy Porterfield, you feel free to look them up. But those are 2 people who, a lot of how they make their money are breaking things down into step-by-step processes and teaching and testing. And so they're good examples of Mavens. They're not coaches necessarily, but they have built their business as Mavens. Okay, so step 1 for Mavens is captivating. Okay, so how do you captivate as a Maven? You want to commit to sharing valuable content every week if possible. So I call this making a content commitment. So for me, every Friday in the morning, there's a post going out to my email list. Okay, and that's been happening for 5 years. So if you do that over time, you're going to have some goodwill, some trust, and some relationships that you've built up. And if you're a Maven, that's going to be a strength of yours. So give your best stuff away for free and then charge for implementation. Some people will ask me, Greg, how do I know where that line is between what I should give away for free and what I should only give to my paid clients? And when we're talking about content, not your time on calls, but when we're talking about content you create, we want to move that free line as far as we can so that you're giving all your best stuff away for free, because people will always charge for implementation. When they buy coaching, they're not really buying your information. They're buying your hand-holding, support, questions, accountability, presence, all of that. And there's no way you can give too much away for free. The better you give away, the better stuff you give away for free, the more people will say, I wonder how good their paid client services are. Okay. Name your concepts and start to develop IP or intellectual property. So if you develop some good thought leadership or some good concepts, give those a name, right? It makes it easier to spread, makes them immediately feel more valuable when there's a name to them. So make sure you're naming your concepts. And remember that when left to your own devices, you might silo yourself, right? You may kind of isolate yourself because you love to create concepts and content and ideas. So you need to make sure you're still developing relationships if you want your ideas to be seen, right? Even if you're primarily a Maven, there needs to be a part of you that's still connecting with others, because you need that for referrals, and all of the best things in business happen through people. So just make sure you're making an effort to connect. Okay, so how do you convert as a Maven? How do you take a client from interested in what you do to actually signed up? I want you to trust that you really are an authority. We talked about one of the downsides of being a Maven is sometimes you have some self-doubt. So bring that confidence and your expertise into your enrollment calls. One of the best things you can do in a free consult with a potential client is help them see the problem they thought they had differently. And part of that is asking good questions, and part of that is teaching a new way to see things. And you'll be good at that as a Maven. So if you can use sales as an opportunity to teach your prospect a new way of looking at the problem, they're going to say, okay, they're able to redefine the problem. They probably have the solution, and they're going to want to hire you. Remember that people make purchasing decisions emotionally, not logically. So sometimes as Mavens, we get a little bit in our head, which is totally okay. But when people put down a lot of money for a coach, it's not a 100% logical decision. They certainly need the logic to back up their decision. There needs to be substance there, but make sure that you're tapping into the real motivation for that person. That person isn't investing in, 3 times a month talking to you for 60 minutes. They're investing in becoming the type of mom that their kids look up to, right? Or whatever it is that person mentioned was the reason that they're talking to you. So make sure you reiterate that as you're selling your coaching. So how do you deliver your services as a Maven? Mavens are the most comfortable teachers out there. So you can get trained as a coach and you can do pure coaching, and that's wonderful. But make sure you have some part of your business, even if it's just the marketing of your business, that's teaching, because that's something that you love and that's something that you're good at. Don't force yourself just to ask questions to your clients. So you'll find that a lot of clients, if you're a Maven, will sign up for you because they want some mentorship and they feel comfortable knowing you have a system. So my perspective, which goes a little bit against, I know exactly how the ICF outlines it. My perspective is teach them a system, walk them through a system. What you're learning in your trainings often is a form of a system, whether it's a life wheel or whatever it is. So start to create your own systems and take clients through that. Continually refine your process until it's predictable. And if you have a predictable process where when you do X, Y, Z with a client, they get Y result, consider turning that into a book or course, because at this point you've developed something that to a certain extent can live without you. And that will allow you to scale your business more easily, obviously, because you won't have to be just on calls with people all the time. What questions do you have for me about Mavens? And for those of you who are Mavens, I'd love to hear that in the chat. Okay, so Gregory had asked earlier, I think I'm a connector, but is this about my target audience being a particular archetype? So Gregory, good clarification question. These archetypes we're going through today, we're talking about you as the coach, as the business owner. It's not about matching yourself to your ideal client's archetype. It's about using your strengths and your archetype to decide which types of marketing to do. Okay, let me know in the chat if that makes sense. So in other words, if you're a connector, you should be using connector strategies. You should be following those first three pieces we went through. All right, Laura says salesperson, Carol's a Maven, Victoria's a Maven, wonderful. Okay, so final archetype, obviously not archetype 1, that's a typo. These are salespeople. Okay, so salespeople. Here's some characteristics and how to know if you're a salesperson. You're good at influencing, you're charismatic, and you inspire others into action. So of course, all of us as coaches, to a certain degree, help people take action, but salespeople are very, very good at helping people act, get re-inspired, get energized. Okay, your asset is your natural ability to persuade. And one of your challenges is sometimes, if you're a salesperson, you can overlook the importance of connections and even the substance of your offering, right? So sometimes we get too high on our own supply, I guess is a weird way of describing it, but we can get really excited about what we have to sell, but you have to also make sure you have the goods, right? That you can deliver the goods. And on the flip side of this is imposter syndrome, where you actually do have the goods and you're afraid to really talk about it. Sometimes for salespeople, you just have to double check yourself that what you're saying you can deliver, you can actually deliver, because you are so good at persuading and it's easy for you to get someone to sign up with you. And some examples would be people like Tony Robbins, Marie Forleo. These are people who have built very large businesses because people want to follow them and people want to buy their stuff because they're very charismatic and they're very persuasive. Okay. So here's how to captivate as a salesperson. Here's how to get awareness from potential clients. Put yourself in situations where people can be in your energy field. What I mean by that is, as a salesperson, the closer people are to feeling your energy, the more likely they are to follow you and to do, what your call to action is and what actions you're recommending that they take. So things like Facebook Live, in-person workshops, these are very good ways for people to interact with you face to face and be in that energy field and feel that persuasive energy that you have. Don't worry about creating detailed how-to posts and detailed pieces of content. You certainly can do that, but your main content should be persuasive, inspirational, motivational. Focus on things like workshops, videos, even advertising. You're probably good at writing sales copy if you're a salesperson. So anything that gives you a platform to persuade is fair game. And by the way, on the flip side, if you're a connector, right, things like you can do Facebook Live and things like advertising, you can certainly learn to do, but the idea is they're not going to come as naturally to you as, for example, developing referral partnerships with key influencers. Okay. So here's how to convert potential clients into clients as a salesperson. You're a natural at sales, right? So don't get thrown off by the fact that you're selling yourself now. I've worked with clients before who actually have a sales background. Maybe they were doing fundraising for a nonprofit, or they were in a for-profit sales situation, and they'll get into coaching and they'll start to have real trouble selling their coaching because they're treating it as different, because they're kind of worried now because they're selling themselves. They're not selling someone else's product or service. Don't get thrown off by that, right? Have that confidence that this is something that's going to serve the person, and your job is to help them see the value in that. Remember to articulate the cost of inaction. This isn't just for salespeople, but for everyone on the call. One of the main things that helps someone, pull their credit card out or pay that invoice to sign up with you is feeling like the cost of inaction, the cost of not hiring a coach, is higher than just maintaining the status quo. So make sure when you have these free consults with people that they're clear and you're clear on, if you just maintain the status quo, right? If you're not able to get support in this area of your life, what is the cost of that? And then being able to reference that alongside the investment and the cost of your coaching. Robin, will these slides be available offline? Yeah, I can send you guys the link. I can have Karen get those to you when we're done. That's not a problem. Okay, final piece of convert. The more time you spend enrolling, the better. So make sure you're offering things like free strategy sessions, free consults, and make sure you're doing those each week with potential clients. The more of those you have as a salesperson, the more clients you're going to get, the more money that you're going to make as a coach. And how to coach as a salesperson. So you're good at helping people stay confident and motivated. So really make sure you're using that skill. Part of why people are signing up with you is, again, they want to be around your energy, and they know that if they sign up with you, they're going to get stuff done, right? They're going to get after it. Challenge your clients and inspire them to go bigger than they would on their own by default. And things like retreats, speaking, live events, those are good ways to scale your coaching if you're a salesperson. Because remember, people want to be around your energy. Things like speaking, live events are good ways to do that. So my suggestion for you all is start with your strengths and then hire for your weaknesses. Some of you may be like, Greg, I don't ever want to outsource anything. Or, I can't even imagine being at that point where I would hire members of my team. But someday you might be, right? And others of you may be like, yes, I need help right now and support right now. Maybe not on the coaching side, but on things like administrative pieces or certain marketing pieces. Start with the things you're good at. So for example, if you're a connector, start by spending your time building referral partnerships. Don't necessarily start running Facebook ads, right? Because it's not your strength. Later, as you grow your business and as you have more cash flow coming in, then you can hire a Facebook ads person, right? Because they may be a salesperson and they may have that natural strength. Start with your strengths, hire for your weaknesses. So I promised I would help you all create a game plan for what to focus on each week. So for connectors, what is a habit that you can stick to that will result in referral partnerships? Okay. And I'd love you all to type in the chat, if this is your archetype, if you're a connector, what are some options? What's a habit that you could do weekly that you think if you focused on that process and you were consistent with it, it would naturally result in some good referral partnerships? Go ahead and share your ideas in the chat. One thing that I do, an example is, I'm not a connector, right? But one thing that I do for my connector side is every Friday for about 30 minutes, I reach out to my top, 50 contacts, people. I call it my lifeboat list. These are the people who, my business goes to hell, if my home, gets wrecked by a tornado, I don't know, whatever horrible things. These are the first people I call to get support. They're my lifeboat, okay? And these are the people who I know have my back, and I need to continue developing those relationships. I can't just only reach out to those people when I have a favor to ask, or when I'm doing a live event, or when I want a referral, or when I need some advice on something. I need to proactively develop that. So every Friday for 30 minutes, my executive assistant has prepped a list, and she said, here's your 5 people to reach out to today from your list. Here are some of the things that they're up to that you might ask them about, and then I just bang it out. Okay, so that's an example of a weekly habit. So for Mavens, what's a habit you can stick to that will allow more people to see your ideas? And I just saw Vicky's comment came in. I make it a point to reach out to at least one person in my network every week to just check in and see how they're doing, share an article. Wonderful. So very similar type of habit for Vicky, which is great. Rita, add my referral partners to my email communications that I send to clients. Great. Awesome. Hope you're asking permission when you do that, but that's a great thing to have them on your email list. Lauren, as a Maven, weekly blogging, right? That's a great example. Vicky, I only do one person, you're doing 50. That explains a lot. Well, Vicky, so keep in mind, I have a list of about 50, but we only pull 5 each week. Okay, so we're probably pacing similar. You're doing 1 a day. I'm doing 5 on Fridays. And if you were a connector, though, like if I were a connector, I'd be doing a lot more reach outs. Because I'm a Maven, it doesn't make as much sense for me to spend time on that strategy. For salespeople, what is a habit you can stick to that will bring more people into that energy field, right? So it could be proposing a workshop idea to one person in your local area, right, who already sort of has an audience. Maybe they run a meetup. Maybe they do a business networking group. Maybe it's, I'm going to go on Facebook Live every single day at this time. right? And my encouragement is when you start this habit, if it's a new habit, start small, right? So sometimes we get excited and we create this grand habit that we really can't stick to. Much better for you to start small, actually build something sustainable, and you can always increase. The key is consistency, not intensity at first. Sherry, write an article to email out. Cool. So, you know, oh, that was Karen who said that. And Vicky, you're feeling better now. Good. All right, so game time. So I want you to, this is your action part of today, and then we can open it up to some questions. I'd like you to decide on a realistic weekly habit that leverages your archetype and helps you keep your pipeline full, helps you actually continue to get potential clients in, in your world, aware of your coaching. And it can't be something you're already doing, right? So here are the rules. If you're already doing it, that's awesome, but you're not gaining anything from the training by just continuing to do that. It needs to be realistic and small, right? Just start small if it's a new habit. And 3, it needs to be specific. So just saying, I want to put out videos, that's awesome, but that's not yet, we don't know what success looks like there, right? So just like you do for your client, what specifically does that look like? So I'd love to see in the chat some commitments of new habits you want to start. They're small, they're bite-sized, they're not something you're doing already, and they're specific. We would actually know if you did it or not. I see Jean had said routine outreach to colleagues and friends, phone, coffee, lunch, weekly, newsletter with info on my articles, monthly. Great. Wonderful. Who else has some habits that they're going to start after today? Laura said LinkedIn posts for name recognition. Great. Wonderful. So LinkedIn can be a great place, especially if you have, if you're in the leadership space, you're working more with corporate clients, business owner clients. LinkedIn is great. So Laura, my push for you, right? You don't necessarily have to write back in the chat, but my push for you would be get specific with that, right? How would we know if you were successful with LinkedIn posts for name recognition? Are we talking about once a day you're writing a post? Are we talking about once a month? What time each month are you putting it out? That way you have a metric for yourself. Vicky, reach out to 2 people every week to check in, share a resource to set up time for call, lunch, check-ins. Wonderful. So Vicky is just kind of increasing what she's already doing up a notch, which is great. Laura, LinkedIn once per week and blog once per 2 weeks and article once per month. Wonderful. Awesome. Great job, Laura. Okay. So that is the training. Those are the archetypes. So I'm going to come back to you all. What questions do you have? We're here for 15 minutes. If you guys have any other questions, otherwise happy to end early. And if Karen, if there's anything I missed, feel free to bring it to my attention.
Oh, that was great, Greg. No, thank you very much. Yeah, guys, if you have more questions on the entire topic, now would be the time. We can get that put into the chat or into the Q&A box. We do have something from Sherry. Greg, you did touch on this a lot in the salesperson part. So you may have answered her question already, but I just want to make sure that we do ask it at least. And Sherry said in the Q&A section, are you going to cover methods of marketing, such as webinars, Facebook ads, etc., that are easier for each types?
Yeah, I think I did that to a certain extent, right? There's only so much in depth we can go with the time that we have. Each one of those strategies is its whole 2-hour training. But for example, connectors want to be thinking about things like referral partnerships, things like guest interviews and podcasts, or interview videos, or roundup posts, right? Where you're interviewing, asking a question to a bunch of experts and putting it all together and then having them share it. For Mavens, and I'll just go through it briefly as a recap. For Mavens, the types of things you want to be thinking about are workshops, really in-depth blog posts or videos or podcasts where you're teaching, and webinars and things work well for Mavens too. Salespeople, things like Facebook ads, in-person workshops, speaking opportunities are really good. Facebook Live, Instagram stories, things like that, where you're able to give your energy and your charisma. Okay, so I actually have, and Karen may share this, but I have a whole course on, based on your archetype, what are the strategies that you need to focus on. but that anything more than that would be beyond the scope of what I can teach at this point.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Sherry, I hope that helps. A couple people have asked what your book was, Greg. So I put that back in the chat. Greg's book is Don't Let the Fear Win. And I've also copied the quiz for those of you who did not get a chance to take it before today's session. So that I'm actually going to hit, hold on. I'm actually going to hit that now for the chat, and that'll be in the chat as well. So take a screenshot of that and you can take the archetype quiz. And we do have another question in the Q&A box. So let's see. Oh, no, it's from Sherry. Sherry says, that's so helpful. Now I know why I'm not so motivated to do sales, archetype work, etc. Oh, that's great, Sherry.
Yeah. So it's so liberating when you realize I don't have to do everything. I had all these things that someone said I should be doing to get clients. So I've been holding myself to that, but I haven't really been doing it anyway. I've just been feeling guilty about it. So just giving yourself permission to let that go creates space for you to do more of the stuff that you're motivated to do and you're good at anyway. So I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sherry. So true. Yeah. All right. And oh, Greg put in the chat as well, you guys, a quick link to the book. So that was awesome. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
All right. Marian, thoughts about mixing strategies for multiple archetypes?
So you can definitely do that. And my encouragement, like if there's something that you're excited about that I didn't say was specifically your archetype, obviously you have that natural excitement. So the motivation piece is already taken care of. My suggestion is just start with the ones that are your archetype. When in doubt, start with mastering the strategies that are part of your personality. And you can obviously expand. I mean, at this point in my business, I basically do all of the things that I mentioned. And partially that's because I have a team that can help with that. And the other part is I've just been in it long enough, mastering each strategy at a time. So I've been able to expand from there. But I still only really have 2 or 3 main things that have resulted in 90% of my clients. And they're all pretty much Maven stuff. So you can definitely mix strategies, but my encouragement is less is more. I'd rather you do just one thing really well, or maybe 2 things really well in your business. Because sometimes it's actually a way to hide, right? We're trying to do 5 things well, and we know we can't really do any of them well. So it's almost a way to avoid buckling down, going all in on 1 or 2 strategies, and then having to see, did this actually work, and getting that objective data coming back.
Wow, that was great. Because I've been there. We're trying to do multiple things semi-well when I think the more insightful thing would be buckling down. So thank you for that, Greg.
You're welcome. I saw a question from Giovanna, which is, you can decide on a weekly habit, but if this helps keep the pipeline full is a big question mark. You'll only discover if it works or not later. Maybe yes, maybe not. Right. So that's a great point. And I don't know if that was more of a question or more of just a comment, but I agree, right? Just having one weekly habit, will that get you clients for life? Probably not, right? But the only thing that we can do is focus on the process and fall in love with the process and let results come from there. It's not helpful to say, I need 5 clients, this month. It's what are the things that I know I can do consistently that I know are proven. They've worked for other people or they've worked for me in the past, and then focusing on experimenting and seeing what actually does work. So no, Giovanna, this isn't going to fill your pipeline for the rest of your business from the 60-minute training, but I hope it's given you a sense of here's one thing I could take action on and focus on. And Vicky had said reaching out to a client a week and ask for a referral. If I don't ask, I won't get. That's wonderful, wonderful perspective. And for any of you who are connectors who want to get more referrals, I have a couple pieces of advice for you. Number one, the best way to get referrals is to give referrals, right? So once you create that list of people who are complementary service providers or who have your back because they're in your network and they probably come across your ideal client all the time, once you develop those list of people, how can you help them, right? Because the key, it's like, what was that book? Give and Take or something like that, about how you want to be a giver. Those are the people who do the best in the long term. Every time someone gets a referral from you for their business, they're going to be like, man, it's going to activate that reciprocity. They're going to remember, oh, I should be sending them referrals as well. So that's tip number one. If you want to get more referrals, make sure you're giving referrals. And that could be a habit you develop, is creating your own guide of great resources that you're always sending people to. And tip number two is it's really helpful if people can give you referrals indirectly. What I mean by that is, think about this. Scenario one is Karen says, she sends a message out to the Orange County group and says, hey, I worked with Greg, a year ago. He's really good at helping people get clients. You should sign up with him. Like, you guys should send him a message and ask to work with him. That's scenario one. And scenario two is, hey guys, I had this coach Greg. He has this interesting concept called Archetypes. He's going to lead a free training. Who wants to go to the free training? Which one is easier for Karen to do? Right? Obviously, the easier one for Karen to do is when she has an intermediate free thing that's a gift to you all, gives away value. But some of you are going to watch this, want to learn more. You may sign up for one of my courses or join my list, etc. So if you can develop some free resources, whether those are little free cheat sheet PDFs or you're running free workshops, those are really good times to go to your referral partners and say, hey, I just created this free thing. I just created this article. Do you know anyone who would benefit from it? Or, hey, I'm doing this free workshop next weekend. Do you know anyone who would be helped by it? That's a great time to reach out for referrals, because you have something they get to give to their people that's a gift, and they don't have to put their trust on the line as much with that contact because it's free, right? Versus them referring to you directly. Okay.
Great tips, Greg.
Do you find that certain archetypes succeed better when matched with their same coachees? Sherry, I don't know. You'll have to explore this. It's interesting because I've never gotten this question, and two of you have mentioned it now, is what about the archetypes of our clients, right? And I don't know. I think it could be an interesting thing to take into account. I've never viewed it from that perspective. But, are you going to be, for example, if your client is a connector, are they going to get more value from your work because you're also a connector? Totally could be the case. I don't know how you would necessarily screen for that though, right? It's kind of like less under your control than knowing your own archetype. But it's an interesting question. Gene says, coach for 8 months. I'm following my game plan as you outlined fairly consistently. However, very little client activity. So that could be a whole big coaching session, right? If I were to ask you what you were doing and stuff like that. So we could make tweaks. But a good rule of thumb is if you've been doing the same stuff for long enough, and 8 months I would define as long enough, is not getting you the results you want, probably more of the same isn't going to change. The results won't change. Sometimes there's a dip, right, where you just need to stick with something long enough to actually get traction. But if you're working consistently on stuff for 8 months, that's probably a good sign. Either I need to do more of what I'm already doing, like I haven't reached that threshold where we've reached that critical mass and it's actually making a difference. So for example, you're putting out a blog post once a month and 5 people are seeing it. Maybe if you put out a blog post every week and you're actually intentionally distributing that to different networks where your ideal clients are, maybe that's going to make the difference. Or maybe it's the strategies that you're doing, just for whatever reason, they're not landing. So sometimes you experiment with something, doesn't work so well, you got to try something else until you find that thing that works. And we all go through it. So it's awesome that you're able to just be upfront with where you're at there. But more of the same probably isn't the answer. Vicky, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your feedback. Giovanna, focus on the process. Thank you. If you search love the process or focus on the process, Greg Faxon in Google, I have kind of a more in-depth article and video on that philosophy. Thoughts on mixing strategies from multiple archetypes from Marianne. You can definitely mix strategies. I think I already answered this question a little bit, but don't spread yourself too thin. Vicky, thank you. Jean, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So Karen, is there anything that we should do to wrap up here? Saw that you just went muted. Robin, great hour. Thanks. You're welcome.
I didn't want to distract from your answers there because you're so energetic and vibrant. I wanted you to have the whole screen, so I bounced off there for a second. Thank you, Rita, and just lots of love here in the chat, and so glad that all of you guys found this super helpful. It's kind of further up in the chat now, but I did put Greg's, where you can find Greg to learn more about him, www.gregfaxon.com, and also the course that he mentioned, fosteryourroster.com, where you can find out a lot more about this archetype stuff. So, Greg, I meant to ask you before we hopped on, and I think you'll say yes to this since you said yes about sharing the slides. We actually started a YouTube channel for ICF Orange County where we are recording this webinar where everyone can then access. Is it okay for us to just do that instead of having to share the slides?
More the better. I'll post the link in it now for you, Karen. So make sure you copy that link before we shut down. And that's where you all can see the slides afterwards, and you're welcome to post that wherever would be helpful.
Perfect. All right, you guys, we'll get that sent out to you, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. And I think the best way is to see if there's any more questions. Greg, thank you so much for your time today. Wow, we learned a lot. Learned a lot about myself again, which is always nice to revisit this topic. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you. It was a great turnout. Thank you, everyone, for giving me your presence and wonderful questions. Made me think about things on this topic that I hadn't even considered, which is wonderful. Karen mentioned a course that I have. It's called Foster Your Roster. It's very inexpensive. It's an easy way to get more information on how to actually use your archetype. We go a lot more in depth into each strategy, so feel free to check that out, see if it might be a fit for you. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, you can email me, greg@gregfaxon.com. I always love hearing feedback, what you enjoyed, what you feel like was missing, so I can keep upping my game. And that's all I have for you today.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being here today. We have a chapter meeting on Thursday. Hopefully some of you can be at. And again, thank you, Greg, so much for today. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.